But yeah, it's quite amazing that we had almost 160. I'm not quite sure about the number because the number kept going up. But they struck a school yesterday morning, an elementary school, and all those kids, all those girls were slaughtered. Yet Western media says nothing about it. They're completely indifferent. Or they in the city of Minot, a small city. So 100 and I don't know 60 little girls slaughtered in an elementary school in a small city. That that I think has a big impact on the entire city, the entire town. It's not like the city of Tehran or London or New York. I mean, it would be catastrophic anyway. But for a small town, I think it would have very another layer of suffering and pain, and that would accompany it alongside the pain and suffering that we would have in other bigger cities. But
and of course, we care in the West so much about women and girls, right? I mean,
this is something and the irony is, of course, absolutely, and the irony, of course, is that yesterday another place that they struck was a gymnasium where girls were playing volleyball, and they killed a large number of these girls. I think almost 20, from what I read in the report. So when it comes to Iran, it doesn't matter. Yet when it's Saddam Hussein, even though he was, as rightly pointed out, a monster who invaded Iran, he used chemical weapons, he invaded Kuwait, but in order to stop a war, they were willing to go to the streets and be active across the UK, and I was a part of it. I think I was actually in the first anti-war demonstration. It was over Afghanistan in Birmingham, when Blair came to Birmingham to inaugurate the European Studies Institute or something like that at the University of Birmingham. There were like 50, 60, 70 of us there protesting. But then we all went to London for the big war after Afghanistan, and then the build up to the war in Iraq. We all went to London. We took the train, and we saw the people of the UK go in such large numbers. But when it comes to Iran, it's total indifference. As rightly pointed out, Iran, which has not invaded any country. And yeah.
And what is the plan from Iran in terms of responding to this? I mean, again, it is so the cognitive dissonance between what the Western media says about Iran and what Iran actually is in terms of their response to these attacks, and also the Strait of Hormuz, which is something that Brad really wanted to talk about last time, and obviously it's more relevant than ever. But can you talk about that aspects, please?
Well, just like this is the third war that Iran has been a victim of after the revolution. First, it was Saddam Hussein, where the West supported Saddam. So did the Soviet Union, but the West did much more as time went by. And they gave him chemical weapons. I survived 2 chemical attacks. Saddam massacred 6,500 people within minutes in the city of Halabja. And the second war, and the United States, as I was saying earlier, entered the war on behalf of Saddam near the end during the last months. And the second war, of course, was the 12-day war, which we had 8-9 months ago. And the United States was negotiating with Iran. At the negotiating table, they constantly moved the goalpost. And then it turned out that they were conspiring secretly to attack Iran as the negotiations were taking place. And this time around, we had the exact same thing. The negotiations began. The foreign minister of Oman said that progress has been made. And he went to Washington to speak to people, to speak with the media. And then immediately the United States carried out this assault that is far more massive than what we saw during the 12-day war, because not only is the Israeli regime attacking Iran, but the United States has brought huge resources to the region at huge cost, and has launched out a massive assault against the country. And you can still hear a baby crying. So, and I don't know if it's you can hear her or not. But the Iranians immediately afterwards, they began retaliation. They were far more prepared this time because they were expecting an attack. The very fact that Trump and his people were lying, like in 2003, Trump went and during the State of the Union address said Iran is building missiles with 10,000 kilometers, and then saying 30,000 people or whatever were killed, and these fake inflated numbers. And then we saw Witkoff saying that Iran can assemble a nuclear weapon in a week, whereas Trump said he obliterated the nuclear program. He said it so many times, just a few months ago. And then Vance too said we have intelligence or evidence that Iran is trying to develop a nuclear weapon. All of that is inconsistent with what Trump said before, and also what U.S. intelligence has been saying for many years, and continues to say that Iran is not developing a nuclear weapon. Tulsi Gabbard just testified a few months ago, pointing that out. But Trump said in response that I don't care what she says.
Right.
So when Trump said these things, and then Witkoff and Vance were saying these things, then people in Iran said, well, they're preparing for war. They're trying to fool people into believing that Iran is some sort of imminent threat to the United States. And so this time, and also they've been preparing for 8 months anyway. Everyone knew that the United States would come back and the Israeli regime would attack again. It's in the nature of the regime. So the response to the retaliation began very swiftly. Last time round, when the Iranians were caught a bit off guard, it took, I think, some 17 hours. This time round, I think within an hour, the Iranians began striking. And they've been striking on multiple fronts this time because the Americans are also involved. So they're striking U.S. assets in the Persian Gulf and in the Arab countries because the United States has bases in all of these Arab family dictatorships in the Persian Gulf. And so Iran is at war with the United States, or it's responding to the U.S. war against Iran, let me put it that way, and the Netanyahu war against Iran too. So it's fighting on multiple fronts as we speak. And as I said, ever since the program began, there was one really big explosion, which was close by, and another one that was far further away.
And I'm so sorry about that, and that must be frightening. What can you tell us, Haim, about the military preparedness or lack thereof of Israel and of, I guess, the West too? And what are they thinking? Is this a suicide mission?
Well, first to say that Britain is part of this attack.
Yeah.
For few months, they have been supplying Israel through Akrotiri in Cyprus a number of flights every day, between 5 and 15 flights of large cargo airplanes every day. So when Starmer said we're not part of it, as usual, he's lying. There's hardly anything that he says which is not a lie. He might be on the way out, but Britain is not going to change under another leader. And their position was exemplified in their support of the genocide. There is nothing that they will not do to support Israel and the United States. So that's disturbing where I live in London to know that our government, well, it's not my government, is supporting another genocide and another crime. What happens in Israel is impossible to know, actually, because there is total censorship and punishment promised to anyone who publishes details. But we see quite severe damage and large explosions all over Israel in this system that I'm part of anti-Zionist people connected. Some information is shared. I don't want to put those people into danger, but it's obvious that the Israelis are keeping mum about what is happening, and there is major damage. Dr. Marandi has said many times, and I follow you very carefully, Mohammad. You said very many times that Israel, in a sense, is one of the problems, not the problem. And the problem is around Iran and the Arab countries. And this is a terrible thing that they have done. All of them have offered their countries, their economies, their gifts, of course, to your own president. And basically, they allowed the West to use the Arab space as a space of war against Iran. without precedent. So Iran is not just fighting the West, but is also fighting most of the Arab countries that are part of this. And that's very shameful. First of all, the Arab countries are Muslim, and I don't understand what is in it for them, apart from their own destruction. In Israel, they are now talking about destroying Turkey next, Pakistan, and Egypt, and Saudi Arabia. So Saudi Arabia is serving, I'm not talking about the other countries, they're all serving the American cause. And at the same time, they are putting themselves in danger of being the next to be attacked. So this is really idiotic. What I'm very worried about, and I'll be very interested to hear what you have to say about this, Dr. Marandi, is I think that Iran can and does cause damage to Israel. It's not standing aside this time. And I don't think it should have at all been negotiating, because the negotiation was just a ruse and a cover-up for the attack, like the first time. There is no way you can negotiate with Kushner and Witkoff or with Trump, and the Russians have found that out as well. So what Israel is now facing is destructive. They may well regret, and I hope they do regret, what they have done. All the damage, not just in the last 2 days, but all the damage that they have caused to Iran over the years. I hope they regret that. But the danger is that both Israel and the United States are nuclear powers. And as they run out of ammunition, which they will, and the Americans will run out of ammunition, I believe, before the Iranians. We know that from the 12-day war, where they came running to the Americans. The Israelis came running to the Americans and said, "Get me out of here. We're running out of, missiles, and we can't. Our defense is shot." So once this happens, it may happen in a week. It may happen in 2 weeks or more. In Israel, they're talking about few days to end the war. This is like they were talking about in the same way in 2023 when Hamas attacked on the 7th of October, and they said there will be 7 or 10 days and we will finish them. So if they, after 2.5 years, they're still fighting Hamas, they think they can defeat Iran at all, and not to talk about few days. So I think what is very frightening here is when Israel realizes that they are running out of ammunition, conventional ammunition, they may use what is in Israel called the Samson option. I'm terrified about this because this will not just harm Iran, it will harm the whole Middle East, and actually is likely to cause the Third World War, a nuclear Third World War.
Can you explain what the Samson option is for people who don't know?
Well, the Samson option relates to the fact that Samson in the Bible, in order to defeat the Palestinian of his time, which were called the Philistines, brought the roof down on everyone, including himself. Right. So the Samson option is a suicidal option. And Israel is the most likely country anywhere to do that. And Trump is the most likely president to support him in such an action. And I think that will force the Chinese and the Russians into a nuclear war. And, we are all written off. So I think I'm very worried, not about Israel winning, because I don't think that is going to happen, but I'm very worried about Israel losing and then using that card.
Right. So a question to both of you is, what on earth, and I know we're not inside of people's minds, but what is motivating this? Because there's so much talk of the U.S. doing Israel's bidding. And of course, there is a very strong Israel lobby, but it's not like there aren't neocons in the U.S. government. And it's not like there isn't a kind of indigenous native, as in native to the U.S. government. I'm not talking about people, obviously. what is behind this? I mean, you have Jewish Zionism, you have Christian Zionism, you have this Greater Israel project. In fact, Brad just texted me. Israel is all about building Greater Israel, and much like the Nazis, will not stop trying to take more and more territory unless they are stopped. And here we go. Okay, but in the case of Israel, its support in the West is rooted in Christian evangelicals. Oh wait, I didn't see. Can you show the first one, Brad? Your first one? I only see this second one. Or do you not have that one? Okay, they're trying to create Greater Israel, and they will not stop unless they are stopped. Same way Trump is trying to create Greater America. But in the case of Israel, its support in the West is rooted in Christian evangelicals et al., who believe this is all in pursuit of bringing about biblical prophecy or whatever. But Israel is all about building Greater Israel, and much like the Nazis, will not stop trying to take more and more territory unless they are stopped, in my opinion. So, I mean, this is how does the world deal with this? I keep saying that there has to be some kind of global cooperation. That the only, I mean, we don't have the Soviet Union anymore, right? Obviously, the only way it seems like the West, and it's not just the West, I guess the West and its Arab enablers or its Arab conspirators, collaborators, can be stopped is if the many governments that are less powerful unite together and cause, military damage or economic damage. What is to be done? I know it's an overwhelming question, but Dr. Marandi and then Chaim, please.
Well, first I'd like to respond to the question about why Iran negotiates, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Contrary to what they say in the West, and I'm sure that three of you know this quite well.
Oh, 1 second. Sorry to interrupt you. Please, this is not out of insecurity or self-validation. We have over 15,000 people watching, and very few have liked. And I know that's not because you don't like it. It's just because I haven't trained you yet well enough, because we have a lot of new people. Like the stream because you don't want the bots. We do have more bots than usual to win. And also you don't want the algorithmic suppression and tech bros to win either. They don't want people hearing this. Despite that, we have a lot of viewers. But please like the stream and share it, because we need as many people as possible to hear this. Okay. Sorry, back to you, Dr. Marandi.
Sure, and please like so that all the things that Katie said would happen, and that the bots would be defeated.
Yes.
That's what happens when they do that. But basically, Iran is a country which has very diverse schools of thought and very different world. But in the West, they say it's a dictatorship, and so it's it's a one-man show or one-man rule. It's not at all like that. So in Iran, you do have a significant number of people who believe that we should negotiate, and they think that there may be a solution. I agree with you. During the first series of negotiations and the more recent ones, meaning 8-9 months ago, and now, I was convinced that we're not going to get a solution. Even when the JCPOA was signed in 2015 during Obama, I was there. I was with the team.
Right.
And I told Dr. Zarif, who was the foreign minister back then, that I don't think the Americans are going to abide by their commitments. And they didn't under Obama.
You were an advisor.
I was a media advisor, yes.
Media advisor. Okay.
So I've been skeptical for a long period of time. But there are a number of things. One is that if the state, if the government, if the administration, or at least parts of the state or public opinion want to negotiate, and the government or the state decides not to do so, then if something happens, the Americans will say,
exactly,
there was a solution, you refrained from even talking, so it's your fault. Right. And you know how Western media works, you know how Western think tanks work. As we speak, we negotiated, there was progress. The United States again carried out a blitzkrieg attack, and Western media is blaming Iran. And even those who are opposed to the war, they say Iran is evil, but we shouldn't attack. And in a sense, in the previous show that we were talking, I believe that these people are just as bad as the neocons, because they legitimize aggression by saying that the Iranians are evil or the Venezuelans are evil. No, if anyone's evil, it's the country that wants to wage war, not the victim. So that even using that language and opposing war enables war, because it it attempts to, or at least effectively legitimizes it or makes it seem legitimate, not that it really is legitimate. But in any case, so if there's war, then these people say, look what you brought upon us. We could have had a solution, but you were stubborn, you refused to talk. So the Iranians negotiated. It's useful for internal politics, internal public opinion, but also external public opinion, because again, the Western media is hostile towards Iran. So at least if the Iranians are trying, or at least as seen to be trying, then countries in the global South that have influence, they would understand, or they would see that, yes, the United States is not being honest. The United States is just using this as a ruse, and it is secretly conspiring. In both cases, that's what the United States did in the last year. That the negotiations were simply a tool so that the United States could attack Iran. That's my interpretation.